Welcome to the next episode of Road to Open Qualifying. In today's video, we're breaking down one of the most critical aspects of the game, the short game, and we're going to be joined with renowned tour coach Shauheen Nakhjavani. Whether you're looking to lower your scores or just improve your techniques around the greens, these tips are a game changer. Stick around, because we're diving into some of the fundamentals that could completely transform your approach to chipping, pitching, and everything in between. Let's get started. Hey everyone, James Colin Davis here, and welcome back to another episode of Road to Open Qualifying. If you've been following along, you know this journey is all about pushing my limits to help me for the upcoming US Open and Canadian Open qualifiers this coming May. And I want to bring you with me every step of the way. Whether you're a golfer looking to level up your game, or if you're someone who's just interested in following the behind-the-scenes prep of a professional golfer. In this video, we're diving deep into the short game. If there's one aspect of my game that has been a constant focus this offseason, it all revolves around wedges. Over the next few months, I will be refining every aspect from chipping to pitching to approach shots. Because I'm sure, as most of you know, the short game can make or break a round, especially under the pressure of tournament play. In this video, I am joined by renowned swing coach Shauheen Nakhjavani. Shauheen has been helping me sharpen my skills since we first worked together on my swing back in August. Together, we're going to break down some key short game fundamentals that will help make you more consistent and confident around the greens. These aren't just tips for a weekend golfer. They're the kinds of strategies that I will be using to give myself the best shot of qualifying for the biggest stages in golf. So whether you're working on your own short game or just following along, grab your wedges because we've got a lot of work ahead of us. Let's dive right in.
Do you want to start with just like generic rules of like short game versus full swing?
Pretty much.
What are common mistakes?
Short game for dummies.
Like basics?
I'll mention this at some point in the video, but if you look at the comment section of some of my videos, you would think that I'm the worst short game player ever. Now, it's not my strength. For sure, it's not my strength.
Oh, you don't have to tell me, dude. I got the short game yips. I know all about it.
Let's go over the fundamentals of the short game. Take a look at mine to see if there's anything that I do that's glaringly obviously wrong.
There is, I saw that.
Okay, there we go. Fine. I figured it's not.
Okay, let's start by talking about full swing versus short game.
Yeah.
The number one thing is that people need to understand is the full swing and the short game are two entirely different universes.
Yeah.
And not only are they entirely different, but there is actually an inverse relationship between them.
Okay.
What makes a player very good in their full swing oftentimes can be a fault to their short game.
Sure.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
This is why the best drivers of the ball aren't necessarily the best wedge players. What is it about them that is an inverse relationship? Well, what are we trying to do with our full swing all the time? Hit the ball farther, create more ball speed,
yeah,
create more shaft lean,
yeah,
create more compression. You can look at compression in many ways. The simplified way to look at compression is your smash factor. Mm-hmm. The more you compress the ball, relative to the amount of club head speed you're creating, the more ball speed comes out. Yeah. The less spin you're going to have, the more stronger smash factor you're going to have. Right? The stronger your loft is, the more compression you create.
Yeah.
That's really good for the full swing because we're trying to hit the ball a long way. And you are creating a lot of speed, which helps, and the speed helps you put the ball in the air.
Sure.
When it comes to the short game, compression, in many cases, not all, I'll preface that in advance, in many cases, is a nightmare.
Yeah.
If you have way too much ball speed, you are going to hit the ball way too far.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to stop the ball on the greens. The best wedge players in the world are able to take speed off the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You can still keep your club speed, but when I start to hit the ball with less and less ball speed, my smash factor drops off, I create more spin, I'm able to stop the ball on the greens a lot better.
Sure.
That's where a lot of people go wrong. They take full swing technique, they carry it over into their short game, it does not transfer over very well, and then their short game is a nightmare. So what do you see around the greens? What are common mistakes we'll see with people around the greens?
Ball way far back in their stance.
Ball is so far back in their stance. They have so much shaft lean.
Yeah.
They're taught to have their body lines preset very open. So if I'm doing this relative to the camera here, they're chipping like this.
Yeah.
And then it's an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
Well, what is going to be the likely outcome here if I'm chipping with that technique? There's one of two possibilities that are likely to happen. Either I'm going to make solid contact on the ball.
Yeah.
and I'll actually clip ball first, and I won't do what I just did.
Sure.
But I'm de-lofting the face so much that I'm removing so much loft on the club face that the ball is going to come out like a rocket ship across the green, and I won't be able to stop it. And then if they have a bunker in between them and the green, good luck. And you see a lot of people that get very nervous when they have to hit the ball over a bunker, over water, over something, because they can't create enough loft because their setup and their technique doesn't help them, right? Or I am now de-lofting this face so much, I've removed all bounce from the club face, and now my leading edge is like a knife that's going to stab the ground, and I'm going to just chunk it, the famous phrase in the West, laying the sod over it. I'm going to basically do one or the other. That's rocket ship, that's the first scenario, and the second scenario was the first ball I hit where it's a flip shot that goes nowhere. So what we want to do is we want to take speed off the golf ball. The easiest way to take speed off the golf ball is by delivering more loft.
Sure.
There's a lot of ways you can deliver more loft. You can set up with the club face more open. In my experience, recreational golfers do not set up around the greens with enough loft on their club face. They tend to set up very strong, either with a lot of shaft lean or just a very, very square club face. When they're between a bunker and the green and they have a square club face, they need loft. You need to get the ball in the yard. So having some amount of loft is necessary. So not creating a lot of shaft lean, probably a good thing. Having a little bit more club face angle open at address, probably a good thing, right? Anything that you can do to create more loft and remove speed from the ball typically is going to be better for you. And when we're not going to lean the shaft so much and we have the shaft a little bit more squared up, it allows you to use the trailing edge and the sole of the club to your advantage, where if I'm creating this environment, I cannot do that. You want to hit a couple shots? We'll talk through it.
And you would want me to hit kind of like a little vanilla chip right now?
Yeah, let's just say like you're straightforward, everything chip. We're not necessarily trying to cover, a bunker or anything like that. You are just trying to hit, not even necessarily a bump and run, just a stock mid trajectory, mid range kind of chip shot, or a pitch shot in that 10-15 yard range. How would you go about it?
So, and I'll walk you through it, right? So I do ball back, but not outside the back foot kind of thing, more
slightly back in the stance,
back heel kind of thing.
So we would call this probably a ball back of center. Usually the reference point is always look at where the ball is in relation to your sternum, right? So you're probably playing this one ball back of the center point.
About that. Narrow stance. I like to have my hands a little bit ahead, a little bit of shaft lean, but I'm not,
not exactly
not crazy deep.
So even though you're creating an environment where the balls might come out a little bit lower, those elements you're changing aren't very exaggerated. It's very subtle. It's a half ball to a ball back. It's a couple of degrees of shaft lean, not the handle of the club is way past my front leg. Okay.
Something I'd like to do, I like to get a little closer to it so that I get the shaft a little bit more upright.
Now talk about why that's helpful for the everyday golfer, because that's a very beneficial change most people can.
I definitely find it easier to use to activate a little more bounce. If you're in any kind of rough green side, you've technically got kind of less club going through that grass. You just kind of got to get the toe through it instead of the...
What you're essentially doing is you're taking the heel of the club and you're moving it from the ground. So you're removing a point of interaction with the turf that can either shut the face down really easily or create a lot of digging and create other
no, and it's not, there are times where I can go like almost
super exaggerated.
Right? Basic shot, it's just a slight little adjustment. And then, I feel close to the ball. I feel now like I can make a bit more of a cutting stroke, if you will, than a swing.
This would be kind of a shot where you don't necessarily need a ton of loft, but you still want to ensure good contact.
Absolutely, So, ball a little back, shaft a little forward, shaft a little upright.
Okay, so where do you think you go wrong with your chipping that can create a little bit of inconsistency? And I don't know that it would be visible to the naked eye at full speed. But we could talk about it. Because I know what it is, but I want to know if you were able to figure it out.
So there's been a lot of talk, last couple of years, more in the last year, it's about players going kind of up and left through a shot, and I don't feel like I do that. I feel like if anything, I go down in my downswing, and that will lead to an inconsistent ball.
Okay, so there's a reason you go down. It's funny you're talking about this. I just had an entire conversation with another player about this. You are somebody who, in my experience, that I've seen enough of your chipping, where you create a little form of handle drag through the ball.
I do.
You have a little bit of, basically a handle drag is, I have a little too much hand speed towards the target, and when I create hand speed towards the target, I apply a force to the top end of this handle that way. Yeah. When I create a force at the top end of the handle towards the target, I'm dragging the hands, and that's creating what to my shaft?
Well, lean. Yes,
lean.
definitely lean. Yeah.
Right? Okay. Here's the key of why you go down. Let's package this all together.
Yeah.
If I am creating handle dragging motion, right? I'm creating shaft lean. That's the obvious.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating it for the effect of the video.
Yes.
But this is why you dip, and nobody ever pays attention to this. As I press the handle forward and I handle drag, it's not
Jump off the ground. I've got to dip just to get back down to the damn ball.
Now you're understanding.
Yeah.
So if I stand here
you know,
and I create a drag to the handle, it's not that I'm creating shaft lean. First of all, obviously I am creating shaft lean and I'm removing loft.
Yeah.
I'm digging leading edge, yada yada. There's all the stuff that we spoke about that's not ideal. But what happens is every action has a reaction in a different form. If I press the handle forward and I'm dragging the handle, I'm pulling the club head off the ground.
Yeah.
How can I extend up through the ball when my club is no longer making contact with the ground?
Never work.
It would never work.
Yeah.
So if I create a handle drag, in order for me to make contact with the ball, I can't extend up. I'm never going to make contact with it. What do I got to do now to ensure that my club gets to the ball?
Get it. Yeah. And I'm sure you can imagine how consistent that is in tournament setting.
Oh, I've done it myself. I just haven't pulled it out in a tournament.
Gotcha.
I've seen my fair share of that exact scenario.
Yeah.
So the problem is you're looking at an issue.
Yeah.
It could be knees staying very flexed. It could be chest staying very flexed.
I've seen both.
And I'm not creating the extension up that I want, but really all of that, the root of it stems from this. So if I create any form of handle drag, I need to now dip my body, and now the heel is digging even though I tried not to in my setup. And honestly, I saw it right there, right away. And you know what? For the purpose of the video, I actually think it would be interesting if I actually film you from the front, and we'll even see a little bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
To do it, just so people can actually see what it is we're referencing on the shot.
Yeah. I don't think I tried to fix it.
So you're going to notice that you're somebody who goes back very wide, not a lot of wrist set.
Yeah.
And then in order to create some speed, you press on the right hand. You can actually see the right hand starting to apply a force right there. And then you end up with a ton of shaft lean by the time you get to impact. The more shaft lean you create and handle pressing forward, the more the club comes off the ground, the more the chest now needs to dig down in order to make solid contact on the ball. And then you're in this vicious cycle of, I want to hit it solid. I hear all these people talking about extending up, and if you look at all these tour players, you know, I've seen videos all over Instagram, someone puts the line on the head, and then you see the chipping motion, everybody is kind of extending up through the ball. But how could I do that when I'm pressing my right hand forward?
Yeah.
Right, it's like the chicken or the egg. You're trying to,
So much sense.
You're trying to create a solution, but the problem exists elsewhere and you can't actually fix it.
Yeah.
Right? So what you need to stop doing,
Is that.
your trail wrist basically goes into too much radial and
Yeah.
too much extension
Yeah.
in the transition of your chipping motion. Basically meaning it creates too much lag this way and it creates too much lag that way, right? So it's basically up and back. You're kind of going like that, but you're doing it at the start of your transition of the chipping motion, and that creates too much lag, which creates that handle pressing effect that you're experiencing. So this right hand, it can't be doing this.
No, it's got to be very quiet.
It's got to be either quiet, or you ever seen the famous video of Tiger in the bunker recreating a feeling?
Yes. Yes.
You got to basically create some sort of exaggerated rehearsal where it feels as though your trail wrist, so for you, your right hand, is actually working into
the opposite.
You ever see my auto scoop? The famous
I have.
the famous video of like keep your trail on.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a ridiculous like exaggeration.
Sure.
But the idea is like you have to get a sensation that your trail wrist is actually working into flexion, right? What does that mean? Well, it either means keeping it there the whole way through, or you can still create some hinge back, which is fine. But then this has to be your feel on the way down. And now let's talk about the process of making a swing change, because this is where the everyday golfer would clearly create a mistake and then revert back.
Yeah.
If I take your motion where you have really good mechanics here, but then you kind of go like this and then go down, right?
Yeah.
Well, if I'm trying to rehearse not creating the press forward kind of handle drag, and I'm creating more of a release feel with my trail hand, but my chest still stays into flexion and I don't do anything different with my body, what's going to be the outcome?
Chunk the hell out of it.
You're going to bottom out behind the ball. So you're going to stand there and you're going to try to create a motion and you're going to go like this.
Yeah.
Because your chest is so used to staying into a flex position, but now you're throwing the club into the ground because you're trying to avoid a handle drag. Most golfers would now start to chunk the shot and then say, well, that doesn't work. I wasn't the best before, but at least I was making some decent contact on the ball enough to not embarrass myself when I'm on the golf course.
Yeah, yeah.
So in this scenario, what's important to understand is it's not about creating one solution, it's you're fixing the root cause, but you have compensations within there that are lingering that also need to change in order to make it work.
Yeah.
That's the only way your entire system of chipping is going to work.
Yeah.
So you want to get rid of the handle drag, you want to get rid of this wrist going here and this wrist going like this, and you want to create more of this feel, but you would have to almost do that feel while also
almost standing up.
Almost feeling like you're extending.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're going to bottom out behind it, which is fine. Because you have the awareness and the understanding that you're working through something.
Yeah.
The recreational golfer would probably just see a bad result and then freak out and go back.
Okay.
This is a lesson to you all. Don't.
Yeah.
Please do not regress.
Changes take time.
Changes take time. Changes don't just take time for a recreational golfer. They take longer times for tour players. Because you guys have patterns that are ingrained, and it's not just ingrained. It's ingrained with trust in a tournament.
Absolutely.
And now you have to do something you don't trust. It's hard.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give you a fun story. I used to work with this player on the DP World Tour for a couple of years, and he completely revamped the short game. He worked with another short game coach who has worked with so many like top 10 players in the world, and he wanted him to go through something similar to this, which was a lot of feeling of releasing and extending because he was kind of in a similar boat to you. He told me that the first 2 days he worked on the ball, all he did was blade or shank 90% of the ball. And if that was a recreational golfer, they wouldn't have not just not made it 2 days. They would have given it up after 2 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
This is a tour player, a guy who's competing against the best players in the world, basically shanking chip shots in practice for 2 straight days, understanding that there's a bigger picture here that's going to make him a better short game player.
Yeah.
By the way, in the last year, he finished like top 30 at strokes getting around the green now. So he has improved enough to get to that point.
Yeah.
I'm not saying somebody's going to become a tour player around the greens, but just because you have a bit of struggles early on through the process of making a change is not enough of a warrant for you to just give it up.
Absolutely.
100%, you should stick through it because it can only get better than whatever they were doing prior.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Or in your case, you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can hit some great short game shots, but what I need is I need to be a lot more consistent around the green.
And keep in mind, at your level, we just need to turn a weakness into an average.
Exactly. It doesn't need.
You
to be the best
don't need to become Jordan Spieth around the greens.
No, it just be costing me too many strokes.
Bingo.
You know,
If you're getting up and down 50% of the time, it's a pretty good benchmark.
Sure.
So if you're missing 4 greens and getting up and down twice, that's pretty solid,
Absolutely.
especially for somebody who's hitting a lot of greens. That's all you need.
Correct. So now if we're moving away from like this vanilla chip.
Yeah.
So like we did wedge work earlier. And let's say I want to hit the same kind of chip and I just want to hit it higher. Same thing, ball position.
So ball position a little forward.
Yeah. Start to open the face a little bit.
Start to open the face. Now, when you open the club face, though, where is it pointing horizontally?
It's going to start pointing right.
Okay, so the biggest mistake people make now is they're going to stand there. So I'll stand here just to show you. They're going to open the club face up.
Yeah.
Now, they want to hit it high, but if I aim squared up to this shot,
Yeah.
well,
Now the loft is pointing high and right.
the loft is pointing high and right.
Yeah.
So I'll get the ball to go in the air, but it's going to shoot the starting direction way out to the right.
Mm-hmm.
What then most recreational golfers would do is they'll start to either aim really, really far left, or if they aim even just a little left, they start to now really cut across this ball to try to make sure that it starts
with path.
somewhat online. Number one, if I do this, my path is getting so extreme, I might not actually be able to control where I'm bottoming out and how the ball is starting.
Yeah.
But also, even if I actually achieve it and I start it online, I'm cutting across it so much, when that thing lands on the green, guess what it's going to do? It's going to shoot it really hard to the right.
Sure.
And now I'm not actually any more accurate. I got the height, okay, I cleared the bunker, but it's not my problem.
Yeah.
It's not solving my problem, sorry. What is an easier way when you're adding loft to now control the starting direction?
Lower the handle.
So it's actually the opposite of what we said. When I'm trying to chip it a little bit lower, I can get a little closer to it, get the heel off the floor, and I can afford to have a little bit of a stronger face because this is opening the face. The opposite is also true. So if I'm going to open the club face because I'm trying to hit it a little bit higher, but if I'm trying to hit a chipping motion, rather than aiming super across it and trying to do something extreme, I can actually open this club face and just lower my handle a little bit, and that's actually going to pull my starting direction back to square, and then I can actually keep my chipping motion on somewhat of a similar path that I would have done regardless. If you want to make some slight alterations to help you, it's fine. But extremes, we always want to try to avoid them as much as possible.
Yeah. So I'll go ball further up, face a little open. Now I was up here earlier.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to come
You can
back.
stand a little further away.
Yeah.
You can
and
lower the
I can
handle
see
a
as
little
I
bit.
lower the handle, I can see that face squares up.
And now you can swing on a relatively similar path that you normally would.
Yeah.
And you notice, obviously just bottoming out a little behind, but did you notice how the ball actually started? It didn't have, you didn't have to cut across it so extremely. We didn't need to do something crazy that's going to be hard to control how it lands on the green.
So what was launch? Didn't pick up.
Nope.
Launch angle was
Launch at 43, which is much higher.
Oh yeah.
Your average launch for your pitch shots was 25, 26. So you're getting the height that we want. Obviously, it didn't catch all the data, which is fine. We'll hit another one here. But you're getting the height you want. You're getting the start line control you want. And you don't have to do something extreme to your path in order to get there. So the difference would be ball position gets a little forward, face opens, and proportionally, however amount you open the face, try to lower the handle a little bit more. It's almost a very similar rule to what you would do in a bunker. You see people talking about when you're in a bunker, you're trying to lower your hands. Why am I doing it in a bunker and I'm not doing it around the greens?
I've never understood that.
You easily can, of course, within reason. You don't want the handle to be super horizontal, but you always will have 5-10 degrees to play around with the handle angle if you're opening the face to help you. And then whatever is left that needs help, you can always do it through a little bit of an alignment.
Correct. And I've got a question after. I'll hit another shot. Just a bit more. Oh yeah, the one thing I want to say is when I hit these shots, I also widen my stance a little bit.
Yes, typically that's favorable because we want to have as strong of a foundation as possible.
Okay, perfect.
Because you are going to create a lot of speed and the ball's not going to come out very high.
Absolutely.
Sorry, not very fast.
Yeah.
So that would be as nippy gets.
I tried to work on the right.
You tried to throw it a little bit more? I mean, that was super nippy.
Yeah,
the
no,
good
that was
news
really
is
nice.
there, regardless of the fact that it's not going to, I mean, it's not a full shot, so it won't catch all the data.
Yeah.
But you'll notice.
Oh yeah, launching it at almost 47 degrees.
That thing is coming out with a lot of height on it. Obviously, the faster you swing, the further it's going to go.
Sure.
But that ball is carrying still 10 yards in the air.
Yeah.
If you need to just clear a bunker and get it to land really soft, you could easily do that with this.
Absolutely.
And then the fun part is you can play around with these. We just went through the two extremes.
Yeah.
But you can find a happy medium where you can open the club face just a little bit without it being wide open.
Yeah.
You can lower the handle just a hair without it being super low and hit the same shot, and it'll just launch now at 40 and have a little bit more distance to it, which is totally fine.
Or anything in between.
Anything in between, exactly.
Yeah. This is where the short game can be so much fun because you can get so creative.
For sure. And I would argue, if I'm a golfer who wants to improve their short game, become really versatile with one club in your hands. I sent a text to Brooks Koepka's short game coach, who is a longtime friend of mine. And I asked him, in your experience, he's a short game specialist, far better even than I am.
Sure.
And I asked him, what in your experience are the best players in the world doing on average with their short game? And he said every single tour player he's ever seen typically has one go-to club in their hands that is between 55 and 60 degrees of loft. 54 is something that I can see some players get away with, but that's probably the end of the extreme that I would go. 55 to 60, so it could be a sandwich, a weaker lofted sandwich if they want. And become really versatile with one club in your hands. Learn to hit a lot of shots, because the problem is, if I'm not practicing every club in my hands around the greens, I can do this whole idea of like grabbing a 9-iron and hitting a bump and run. Sure, I'll ensure good contact. I'm not going to ensure how much ball speed's going to come out and how hard it's going to go. People don't practice it often enough. But when I have one club in my hands, if I'm opening the face a little bit, closing the face a little bit, I know relative to the usual how it's going to come out. My understanding and expectation of how the ball is going to launch speed-wise, spin-wise, loft-wise, is a lot easier to control when I'm playing with the same club in my hands every time.
Couldn't agree.
That would be my suggestion, and this is also directly from a lot of very experienced tour coaches who work with the best players in the world. So I'm fully on board with that mentality.
This is something I've done over the last couple of years. I used to be more of a, I've got 4 clubs kind of thing, well, my 4 wedges, that depending on the shot, how far do I have to carry, how much do I have to roll out, change clubs.
It's way more predictable when you have the same club in your hands, because you understand the loft that you have in your hand.
Absolutely.
That's really what it comes down to.
And one of the things that I found was, because I mean, I'm not a full-time player, you know, I'm still like, well, I'm running a YouTube channel, I'm giving lessons, you know, I don't have as much time to commit to practice as I would like to. So if I now have to practice 4 different clubs around the green, I just don't have time for that.
You now have to keep up, by the way, with the practice of all four to
Absolutely.
understand the speed in which those shots are coming out.
Yeah. And now there are still situations where, you know, maybe I've gone for a par 5 and 2 and I leave it just short off the front and the pin's back left kind of thing, and I will take a 9-iron out and just feel that out. You still have that shot. I wouldn't say it's exclusive.
Don't get me wrong. I'm
I'm
not saying that you should never do it.
Yeah.
I'm saying that a large percentage of your shots, not all.
Yeah.
I never say all. A large percentage of your shots, 80 to 90% of your chipping shots, should always be with one go-to club.
Sure.
Understand and learn how to be more versatile with one club in your
Absolutely.
hands. And then when you need it in special scenarios, you can play other clubs,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, yeah. And I find, I mean, the more loft, the better. For me, it's always 60-degree wedge.
That is the go-to for most tour players in general.
Yeah.
There are some of them who will have a 56 in their hands or something like that. But
Call it maybe questionable course management, but it seems to be when I miss greens, I tend to be a little short side.
see, like a scenario, for example, if you're hitting a 40-yard bunker shot,
Yeah.
probably wouldn't tell you to go grab your highest lofted wedge
Fair
because you're going to have to hit it super hard.
Yes.
You're going to have to swing super fast.
Yeah.
And it's hard to trust swinging really fast on a shot that doesn't want to go very far. So in those scenarios, I understand if you want to grab maybe a sand wedge or a gap wedge
Yeah.
and hit the same type of normal bunker shot and let the loft do the work for you. But if we're talking about just strictly around the greens, I would probably go to more of one club as often as you can.
Yeah.
As you can.
Yeah, perfect. So now going to, well, more of a question I have for you, say extreme situation, right? So we just did the open face, lowering the handle,
Yes.
right? Would there ever be an advantage to opening the face and raising the handle, maybe lie dependent or?
For sure.
Yeah.
So there are scenarios in which, let's say, for example, the ball's sitting down a lot.
Yes.
You can't
Exactly.
necessarily afford when the ball's
No.
sitting down to
Can't
lower your
lower
handle
it
much
slow. Yeah.
because there's a lot of grass between you and the ball. And the more I lower my handle, the more the heel digs,
Yes.
the more likely I am to snag that thing and either start it way offline
Yeah.
or just blade it or have a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
In those situations, we want a more vertical swing plane.
Yeah.
More vertical swing plane means higher
Shaft more
handle,
upright. Yeah.
shaft more upright, swinging on more of this type of pendulum.
Yeah.
That's a scenario in which, if you want to have a little bit more loft, you can. You want to raise the handle up to get a little bit less grass interaction
Yeah.
between you and the ball, you can.
Yeah.
But then your path would need to be a little bit steeper into
Sure,
the ball, for sure, to
Yeah.
make it work.
And
But
that-
there are scenarios in which you would want to play that shot. For
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a higher specialty shot. in general.
Yes, and I have, but now we went opening the face, loft points to the right, lowering the handle brings that back to center. So now if I'm back up here again, now's a situation where I'm gonna have to start aiming left.
Bingo. So now you have to adjust the face line,
Yeah.
and you can't do it necessarily through the angle that the shaft is resting.
Yeah.
So you have to do it through path. Because the
Yeah.
more you pull the path in one direction, the more you are pulling the face.
Absolutely.
You're not pulling it to the equivalent of the path, but
Sure.
it is moving the start line.
Yeah.
So in theory, in a world like that where you have to stand more upright and you need the face open, you can afford to be a little bit more outside in
Yeah.
to try to pull your start line to help
Yeah.
you out if necessary.
Okay, so I'll try that. Go open face, I'm gonna go a little more upright. Now I feel like that's about where I'd have to go.
Okay, and then you would want to alter your path, obviously, with that as well.
Yeah, so I've opened up my body. I'm
Your intent is to swing
I'm gonna
down your
swing the body line.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Not try to swing directly at my target.
Sure. Very good.
Came up pretty.
And in that scenario, it's almost like the thought of like you're trying to swing towards that corner
Exactly,
of,
yeah.
of
Yeah.
the simulator. And really, this is a scenario in which you can swing really, really fast.
Yes.
But you need to kill the ball. It's
Well, that's
in
it.
deep
Look at
rough.
the smash factor.
The smash factor drops off
Almost
immensely.
half the way.
This is not ideal for a stock chip shot, but it's
No.
very good in a scenario where the ball's not sitting the best and you
Yeah.
need it to die out really fast.
Absolutely.
That's where I would probably play that scenario.
Okay. Great. Hey, appreciate your comment. Good work. It was very informative.
Yeah. Hopefully that helps everybody out there watching.
Absolutely.
All right, that's a wrap on today's video. I hope those tips helped you fine-tune your short game and get you one step closer to reaching your scoring goals. Remember that these fundamentals are key to consistency and confidence around the greens. And with just a little bit of focused practice, you'll see big improvements in your own game, just like I'm aiming for in my own game leading up to the qualifiers. If you found this video valuable, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel so that you can follow my road to open qualifying journey. We've got plenty more golf tips, drills, and insights coming your way, and you won't want to miss it as we push towards May. Also, to stay connected and get a behind the scenes look at our training, make sure you're following me and Shauheen on Instagram. Thanks for tuning in as we continue this journey together. That's it for this week, and as always, I'll be back again next week with another video. Cheers, guys.